Are you the kind of person that think that people would rather conform to social standards instead of following their own standards, and that, sometimes, following the set social standards can be more beneficial to you than following your own standards? Welcome to the Metaverse, the only movie-like show that addresses things that are so meta you won't know what's going on. Our special sponsor for this show is Skids Studios, and remember what Skids always says: if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Now let's start this presentation. Controlling idea. The movie scenes in J.D. Salinger's The Catcher in the Rye suggests that people would rather conform to social standards instead of following their own standards, and that, sometimes, following the set social standards can be more beneficial to you than following your own standards. This is shown through by how Holden perceives the general movie audience and how they always react the same way as others, by how Mr. Spencer tells Holden to play life by rules, and by how Holden idolizes the innocence of not following what others do and doing things by your own rules. Refusal to follow set rules. Holden throughout the novel refuses to accept what is normal, and acts on his own rules and obligations. Life is a game, boy. Life is a game that one plays according to the rules. Spencer tells Holden that he needs to play life by the rules, and implies that you cannot simply come up with your own rules and play by them. Spencer is saying that if you play by the rules already set in place, you will have more success than when compared to someone who does not play by the set rules. I'd just be the catcher in the rye and all. This quotation is an example of Holden refusing to follow the rules in life that unstated that people must go through from innocence to experience. Holden states and shows throughout the book that he is highly resistant to the idea of things changing in his life, and because of his own personal experience with his brother's death, he wants to stop others who are currently in the innocence stage of life from changing into the experience stage of life. It's $10, Chief. I told you that. $10 for a throw, $15 till noon. I told you that. Morris says this to Holden after Holden hired Sonny and refused to having sexual relations with her. Morris, Sonny's pimp, later comes up to confront Holden about not paying the full price for Sonny. This scene ends in Holden getting physically abused. Holden could have avoided this abuse if he paid the full price and followed the rules for paying for prostitutes, but instead he decided to abide by his own rules. Hatred of others, following what others do, phonies. Throughout the novel, Holden expresses how he feels about others, or as he calls the vast majority of them, phonies, and how much he hates the movies. They were exactly the same morons that laugh like hyenas in the movies at stuff that isn't funny. Holden states this when watching The Pianist, Ernie, play for a crowd. He implies that people at movies only laugh because others laugh, and that they are laughing at things that are not funny to begin with. He claims that they are phonies. Holden says that a lot of people are phonies, and that a lot of people fakes how they truly feel about things. I almost was once in a movie short, but I changed my mind at the last minute. I figured that anybody that hates the movies as much as I do, I'd be a phony if I let them stick me in a movie short. Holden is once again stating how much he hates movies, but also states that he would have almost been a phony if he decided to be in it. He could be possibly implying that actors in movies are phonies, and that he is better than them, or is simply stating that it would be a phony-like thing to do if he were in something he hates so much. Everybody was all dressed up, because it was Sunday, and that made it worse. But the worst part was that you could tell they all wanted to go to the movies. I couldn't stand looking at them. I can understand somebody going to the movies because there's nothing else to do, but when somebody really wants to go, and even walks fast so as to get there quicker, then it depresses hell out of me. Holden states how much he despises how a group of people, who are dressed up, would go to the movies, and that if they were going to the movies because they wanted to, that it depresses him more. This is another example of Holden hating what others do, especially when it involves going to movies. And I'd let DB come out and visit me for a while if he wanted a nice, quiet place for his writing, but he couldn't write any movies in my cabin, only stories and books. Earlier in the book, Holden brings up how D.B., his brother, is a prostitute in Hollywood. What Holden means by his brother being a prostitute in Hollywood is that he writes for movies in Hollywood, and because of Holden's previous adoration of D.B's works and Holden's hatred of movies, he won't accept what D.B wants to do with his own writing. Holden later on makes theoretical safe space, a cabin somewhere deep in the woods, where nobody would ever talk. He says that D.B could come and write books and stories, but not movies, because of Holden's hatred towards movies and anything involved with them. Idolization of following your own standards. I mean, if you tell old Phoebe something, she knows exactly what the hell you're talking about. I mean, you can even take her anywhere with you. If you take her to a lousy movie, for instance, she knows it's a lousy movie. If you take her to a pretty good movie, she knows it's a pretty good movie. This quotation is an example of Holden idolizing the fact that Phoebe doesn't follow what others think about movies, and instead follows what she thinks about movies. The kid was swell. He was walking in the street, instead of on the sidewalk, but right next to the curb. Holden idolizes the kid's example of not following the standard that you should not walk on road because it is a threat to your own well-being, but despite this, the kid still walks on the road. Holden idolizes the kid, claiming that he is swell. This is another example of Holden idolizing people following their own standards.